Hello cruisers, this is Frank Hyder here again with some practical advice on art handling, art making. As we get ready to start sailing again soon, I'm sure lots of you are eager to get back into the artist loft, and I'm going to give you some information today and show you some simple things. My focus is on what we call sealing or preparing to paint, or more commonly referred to as gesso. The word gesso is the Italian word that means plaster, and it's actually has a great deal of plaster in it. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the history of preparation of surfaces to paint, and I'm going to show you some very practical ways to do it. Anyway, in the old days, before there was canvas such as this in front of me, artists painted on wood or on stone. The Mona Lisa is on a 6-inch thick piece of wood. Why did they stop using wood? Well, it actually relates to what you do on the ships. Travel. The beginning of Europeans moving around enabled art to move from Italy to Holland, from Holland to Spain. And in order to do that, moving walls or moving heavy blocks of wood was very difficult. So the product that was created came out of the Netherlands or out of Belgium, which is flax or linen, and later followed by what we call canvas, cotton duck canvas, all right? Now, in order to paint on wood, stone, canvas, or linen, or paper, you need to prime it first. So we're going to do that, but before I'm going to show you exactly some things on how to prime. I'm going to show you a few tools that are old for this business. You've probably seen one of these before. We call it a palette knife. Well, originally palette knives, which resemble a great deal a bricklayer's trowel, originally palette knives were used for priming wooden panels. So they would spread the gesso onto the wooden panel, as I'm doing right here, and let it dry, and then put another coat on it after that dried, and you would get a good painting surface. Why do you do that? Because the paint will soak into the wood if it's not primed, and secondly, if you get insects, they'll eat the wood, but they won't eat the plaster. So this tool, some of you may work with as a painting instrument, but it started out in the priming business. Now, I take a piece of paper and I can prime it also with a palette knife. What's the advantage of using the palette knife? Well, it gives it a little texture, a little surface, and it also is very, very easy to clean up. You just wipe it off. Now, if you've taken art lessons, most places, they tell you you have to get a gesso brush, something like this, or something like this. If you've used a gesso brush, you dip it in this big can of gesso, and you prime with it. Afterwards, you spend 20 minutes trying to wash the gesso out of it, and your gesso can won't last very long. The other problem with a gesso brush is no one ever really gets it clean enough. So eventually it just becomes very stiff and hard to work with. So my recommendation for doing priming most effectively is a simple rubber glove. Put a rubber glove on your hand, and you after you put your rubber gloves on, this is a household sponge. I'm going to dip it into the gesso. And then I'm going to remove this piece of paper and bring over another piece of paper. And I'm going to spread the gesso onto the paper with the sponge. Now, I've applied the first coat to that piece of paper. It will dry faster than this method or the brush method. It'll be dry in 10 minutes. So I can apply a second coat. As a rule of thumb, you want to have at least 2 coats of gesso, preferably 3. And after I've applied that coat, I let it sit. In the interim, I'll take my gesso sponge, dip it again. I'm going to then put gesso on top of an already prepared canvas with my gesso sponge. Now, the beauty of what I'm doing is there's no waste. I have no throwaway gesso. All the gesso has gone right onto the surface. When I'm done, I put the gesso sponge in the bucket. I sometimes just take the glove off and let it sit on top of the sponge in the bucket. I put my cover back on the bucket, the lid, press it down. When I open it the next time, I have the glove and the sponge ready to go. At this point, you are ready to paint. Thank you.